thinking about it. All right, we are live. Hello, Arty Peoples, and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein, and I'm your host this evening. And as you can see, we have a guest with us today. I'm so excited to be introducing you to Dee Silver, the president and amazing just person who has created Silver Brush, which I am a huge fan of, and so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes. Now, Dee has an amazing show planned for us. She's going to be going over how to choose the correct brush for your acrylics, and I cannot be more excited because I know you guys have a lot of questions about that. So before she officially gets into the demonstration for us, I wanted to quickly remind you, if you are interested in anything that Dee shows us, go to the website, jerrysartorama.com, and into the search bar at the top, type in today's class code, which is JL253. That's JL253. That will pull up a teacher's cart with everything that she has on her desk there, and then you guys can check it out that way. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to you, Dee, and let me change our view here so that they can see a little bit better.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. It's very nice to see you today, and thank you for coming. We've always sold through Jerry's Autorama. We're very proud of that. We love them a great deal. Everything you see today is in Jerry's catalog. I believe it's also in their stores, and we do sell throughout all of their stores. So it made it very, very easy for you. So I've been tasked to show you brushes for acrylics and water-based paint. And that's what we have here today. We only have 4 series. Our line is much bigger than this, but we only have time really to show you these 4 series. So I'm going to start off with Bristol On, then Ruby Satin, then Silver Silk 88, and then our Monza series. And the reason why I'm doing it that way is it's according to this stiffness. So our stiffest brush, and I think it's just about the stiffest brush on the market, is Bristol On. Bristol On is this unbelievably great synthetic filament called Interlon, and it is a very, very stiff fiber. So if you've come from oil painting and you've decided, well, I'm going to stop oil painting and I want to move over to acrylics, this is the brush for you because you're used to a firmer feel and you wanted to move the color over the surface. Now, what I have here in paint is I have acrylic paint. This is flat matte acrylic paint. This is fluid acrylic. This is a regular acrylic. This is a watercolor and a gouache. So I've got a bunch of different kinds of water-based paint, so we can experiment with that. You're going to see something that you like a lot if you are a former oil painter. You're going to see a lot of stroke work that you can get with a Bristol On brush. And notice how easily that goes on the paper, but it can also go on very, very stiff fabric or anything else that you want to paint on. So most of the time we're talking about canvas, and I have canvas here too. I really should show that to you, but look how nicely that puts that on a completely different surface. Let me bring that up a little closer so you get into the camera. So we've got it on a different surface, and you can use this stiff brush on just about anything. Let's do this. This is a wood panel. We have wood panels that we could show you also. And this too will work very, very well with the Bristol On series. Now, Bristol On series is very interesting because it comes in lots of different shapes. It also comes in long handle, which is how we had it on the market for many, many years. And we just came out with it in short handle, and everybody seems to really love it. For those of you that like to sit and paint on something very stiff like tin or wood or any of the other 3-dimensional products you might want to paint on, this Bristol On is perfect for you. It's got really nice snap and very, very nice spring. And it will last probably, just as long as you keep it really clean and well. It could last you 10, 20 years. So we love our Bristol On brushes, and I've got it here. That was a filbert that you saw me playing with. And then we also, I'm going to show you, this is an angle. We have this in the angle shape. Now the angle shape, you get a lot of interesting drawdowns with angles, and you get lots of interesting shapes, and you're able to get a lot of control. And that's the name of the game, isn't it? Getting a lot of control with this brush. Now, I haven't used it too much with fluid acrylics, but I can't see why you can't. But I'm going to show you. So that's the matte acrylic, and then we're going to move on to general acrylic, which is what this is. As a matter of fact, this is Soho color. So that's Jerry's brand. Notice how nicely that pulls the color down. That's Bristol On for you. It will always hold its shape. It's never going to get soft and mushy. It's never going to get flip or anything like that. It's just going to keep on painting. And that's our angle brush, which is an extremely popular shape. Think of a drawdown with for a barn or anything like that. You can get a very, very nice shape, and then you could pull it out like that. Now, keep in mind that there you go. That's angle brushes for you. I love this brush. It is probably one of my favorites because of the way it holds color, the way it holds its shape, and it never ever deteriorates. Let's try another kind of color. So this is a fluid. This is a fluid acrylic. As you know, that's a very lightweight acrylic. And look how nicely that also goes on the Bristol On series. So,
now, I'm sorry, I just have a quick question here.
Sure.
We had somebody say that they've heard the term snap and spring. Can you show what that means?
Sure, that's that. That's a snap. Can you hear that? Let's see.
I definitely
can. You hear that snap?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can go over here. So let's do that. Can you hear that snap?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so that's the snap. Spring means it goes back into its original shape. So no matter what I'm doing to it, no matter how hard I am on it, no matter what material I have it on, it's always going to go back into its original shape. And notice how beautifully that happens. Now it's going to happen over and over and over again because that's the nature of Bristol On. It's a very stiff synthetic fiber, and it's never going to lose its shape. It's never going to fall apart or anything like that. Lots of times you see brushes that it gets wet, you put them in paint, you go like this, and you can't get it to go back into its original shape. Never will happen with Bristol On. It's always going to go back into its original shape. This is a round, and I want to keep the round out for a little bit because the next couple of lines, I have a very interesting brush to show you in the next line. So that's Bristol On. We want to move on from here. So I've shown you 4 different brushes in the Bristol On series: the angle, the filbert, the liner, and as well as the round. Moving on, we're going to take now the Ruby Satin series. Ruby Satin used to be the stiffest line that we had in our lines that we had, but today it's our second stiffest. And what makes it a little softer than the Bristol On is has a little bit more spring and a little bit more snap. So those of you that can remember the old original mongoose hair, you no longer can get that, but we have a synthetic mongoose hair. But what it had was a marvelous spring and snap. And that's what Ruby Satin has. It feels very much like that. So it's going to always hold the color. And now I'm going to go back. This is acrylics that I'm using here. And this is dagger striper. Notice that nice shape that I'm getting with the dagger striper. And you get that nice spring on it. I noticed that a lot of landscape painters love to use Ruby Satin because they're able to get a lot of the shapes that they like with that. And it comes back and you can go back into the painting with the exact same brush and continue painting with that. So it's not confusing at all. It's a little bit softer than the Bristol On, but it has that nice spring and snap. So spring and snap is very important. This is a new shape that I just came out with in the Ruby Satin series. We also have this in the Bristol On series. This is called a cat's tongue. And notice the tip of that. It's got a big round edge over here like a filbert, but then it comes to a point. That's what makes it the cat's tongue. This is a great brush because you're able to do a lot of pull downs with it. Let me do that and show you that. So you get that. So a lot of swirling. Those of you that like to do a lot of swirling, rainbows and different things like that. Maybe we can do a little bit of second color on the side. And then we have a little bit of multi-layers over there. So that's our cat's tongue. We have a lot of different shapes in this particular series and all of the series actually. And one is more fun than the other. You may find this intriguing because if you can go into the painting and you can do the little edges and go back into it and keep on getting the detail from the brush itself. It's important for you to, if you go on our website, you're going to see a lot of videos. And one thing that we have wonderful videos of this particular brush and somebody demonstrating with it and showing all the details that you can get with it. So if you have a painting of someone's face and you want to go back and you want to go around the edge of the face or something like that, it's a perfect brush for that. And that's the great thing about cat's tongue. Excuse me. Again, we're at Ruby Satin, and this is a Ruby Satin filbert grass comb. The filbert, any questions, by the way?
So far, I think we might have a little bit of a lag on Facebook, but they are slowly coming in. I will interrupt you whenever I get them, though.
Okay. So this is a filbert grass comb. What makes this unique is the fact that you can go like that and look at the grass that I'm creating. Now, this is great for beards, hair, you know, any kind of landscape effect, of course, grasses and things like that. Notice what I'm doing here. We're getting that wonderful effect. Now, this is a small size. This is a size 1/2 inch, and we have this up to a 3/4 inch, so you can get a larger size on this. And as you work your artwork in, you can see that I'm getting some really nice texture on it. So you get texture, you get feel, you get depth. And that's one of the great things about a filbert grass comb. So here we are. That's our little filbert grass comb. I love that. That's in the Ruby Satin.
It almost
And
looks like a chrysanthemum. That's so pretty.
isn't that something? Something
Yeah.
with absolutely no talent or anything like that. Even I can do it. So it just shows you. You need a grass comb, a Ruby Satin grass comb, and you can make it look like a very pretty flower. And
Having
there
the
are
proper
some.
tools helps for sure.
Sorry.
I said having the proper tools very much helps.
Oh yes, I agree with you. Yeah, I love that brush because it's so unique, it's so different, and it gives you such an interesting texture. And one of the things that everyone's always trying to do is make texture on the surface and make it look more three-dimensional. And you're able to do it with that brush. Now, this is a toughie for me. This is called a triangle brush. And if you go online, you're going to see some incredible artists around the world making some of the most beautiful flowers you've ever seen. So what this is a brush that you can get to make beautiful flowers. You could use it for put the stamen in the middle of a flower. And you can also use it for multi-load. So I'm going to try and do that. And this is you need to practice with the triangle brush. It's not as simple as it looks, although I'm probably not doing the best job in the world, but it is just this unique brush that gives you so much texture and so much depth that you really want to practice with it. And then you can get some great strokes. You see that?
I was going to say, you're making it look so easy.
No, I know that there are really talented individuals out there that do an incredible job with this particular brush. It's kind of hard for me to do it because I'm a little out of my depth here, but this does a wonderful job. And again, lots of videos using our triangle brushes on YouTube and other areas. All right, let's move on. That's Ruby Satin. And the last Ruby Satin brush I'm going to show you is a very interesting brush. So we call this our script liner. Notice the length out on this script liner. So there are lots of different liners that are out there. The script liner is the longest. There's also a monogram liner, which is much shorter than the very small rounds. What makes this unique, I'll make this wet. Notice the long length out and how it doesn't taper. So what you get with this is you can do all the floral tendrils that you've got, hair tendrils. You make all those great lines. And the script liner is the brush of choice for folks that want to write their names, the signature brush. So you can use this for very, very detailed work. The great thing, because it's a ruby satin, it's got a bit of stiffness on it, and you can get a lot of control with this particular series. There are other series that are much less controlling, and they're very difficult to work the script liner, but you won't have that problem with the ruby satin. Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It looks like a couple of people's cameras, or I guess probably what they're viewing on. Yeah, they got a little bit off camera. Can you do a couple more of those brush strokes with that
Sure.
script liner?
Sure. And
Perfect.
how's this? How's this?
Perfect. Perfect.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So notice that I'm getting these long lines here. And that is because of the long length out. The longer the hair out, the more paint it'll hold, but the less controlling it is. The shorter the length out, the less paint it'll hold, but it's going to be more controlling. But you do need a script liner if you're doing work. This is a brush that's in a set that we do called Sign My Name, and because it's perfect for signing your name. So go back in that, go a little bit more. And if you were looking for great artwork today, I'm sorry. I'm a dabbler like many of you. Okay, so that's our ruby satin. By the way, you should mention what a quality product this is. If you take good care of ruby satin, when I'm through here today, I'm going to wash it. I'm going to wash the Bristol On, and I'm going to let it dry with the head down so the moisture doesn't go into the ferrule. And you know what? I'm going to be able to use this brush for years and years and years to come. Take good care of a brush and it'll be your friend, and you'll be able to use it for years and years.
I cannot agree with that more. No, I was just saying I have some silver brushes that I've had for, I'm not even gonna lie, it's probably like been 10 years, and I'm still using them every day. But
Right.
Because you were just talking about the cleaning, that actually does wrap into a question we had. Is there anything particular that you would suggest to do for cleaning to keep the longevity of these brushes?
Well, so the first thing you have to do is make sure you get the paint out of it. So what I do is sometimes there are various brush cleaners for brushes. Sometimes it's in cake form, sometimes it's liquid. I take that, first I rinse it off really, really well, and then I put it in the cake cleaner, rinse it off again and again. But here's the trick. The trick to keeping a brush for years and years and years is not to let it dry like this with the head up. That means that the moisture is going to go into it while it's drying, and it's going to cake within the ferrule. The trick of keeping your brush many, many years is to try and get it to dry with the head down. Okay, let it dry with the head down or flat. Okay, if you can do that, you're going to preserve the brush for years and years to come. You really will. Getting the paint out of the ferrule is one of the hardest things you're going to have to do. So to preserve that, you want to try and get the head to dry this way. The best way to do it, I have little ashtrays all over the place, and I just let it dry flat. Let me see if I could bring it into the camera. Notice it's just flat like that. And that's the best thing for it. I will not let it dry with the head like this because I don't want the paint to go into the ferrule. And that's really important. That's for all brushes. It really is. That's ruby satin and Bristol On. It's our stiffest, it's Bristol On. The next to the stiffest is ruby satin. And now we're coming down to some other brushes that we thought might be very interesting for the audience. And we're going to talk about our new Silver Silk 88. It's not very old, but it is extraordinary. I want to show this to you because this is a side view of what filament looks like. Let's see if you could see that. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so there are a number of synthetic brushes that have filament. If you took a side view, it would look just like this. And that means that you notice they're all the same size. Well, that's probably the worst brush that you can buy, because what happens is when you put the brush into paint or any kind of moisture, the paint is just going to flow right out of the brush. So you don't want this brush. you want this brush. What's the difference between this brush? This brush and this hair and this hair, this has multi-diameter. You see all those different sizes? Because of the different sizes, you have wonderful friction. And that's what holds the paint on the filament itself. Remember, it's not an animal hair, it's a synthetic fiber. And we have to create a friction to keep the moisture on the filament itself. So that's what we do. We make sure that it's many, many multi-diameter. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 12, depending on the filament itself. This is what keeps the moisture on the hair itself. And that way it keeps on painting, it doesn't flow right off. If you've ever gotten a brush it's all the same like this, you know that when you put the brush down on the surface, it just puddles and it's a pain in the neck. It really is. Well, here's the last thing that we did. And I developed this over a number of years. If you can see that on the very bottom, that shows grooves and etches all around the hair. That's what we did for the Silver Silk 88. That's what makes this so wonderful and so different. Because of the grooves and etches all around the filament, it holds the moisture on the hair itself. And it's really a wonderful adhesion. It really is. So when you're using it, you can use a very lightweight acrylic paint, like a fluid acrylic. And this is the perfect brush for a fluid acrylic. You know how light fluid acrylic is. It's extremely light. It's got a little bit of a plastic, which is what the acrylic is, but it's mostly water. And you need something that holds the color on the filament itself. And that's the advantage of Silver Silk 88. It's a great brush. We have it both in long handle and short handle. And it's probably the best fluid acrylic brush on the market. It really is. Let's see if you can see what I just did. And it just keeps on painting. I do want to show you that we have very interesting shapes and sizes in this particular series. And this is the new ultra round brush in the Silver Silk 88. And I want to show you the difference between the ultra. Notice the long length out of the head itself. And it's got this fat belly here and it's got a nice long point. This is the difference between a round and let's see if you could see that. I'm going to put that up there. Notice it's thinner, but it's longer. So what you have is a very, very long stroke with the ultra round. And that's really a remarkable thing, because if you're a painter that needs to make long strokes and you want to just keep on painting, this is the brush that is going to do it for you. So you get that nice belly and you can just do lots and lots of stroke work. See that? And this is fluid acrylic. Now, fluid acrylics are a bugaboo in terms of keeping it on the filament itself, but not with this. This is the finest brush of its type for this kind of paint. And that's a very, very lightweight paint. You can also use these brushes for watercolor, which is very unusual for this kind of thing. And I'm going to do some watercolor for you. Let me get some clean towel over here. Seem to have missed out on. Okay, so I've got watercolor over here. And I just want to show you how nicely this also holds watercolor. So for those of you that are not in love with the idea of spending, you know, a couple $100 on a watercolor brush, and you really want a very good one that holds the color and always comes back to its original shape, you might want to try Silver Silk 88. It's a great series. We love it. This is the ultra round, and now I'm going to show you another shape. And if I sound like I love my brushes, you're right. Okay.
Definitely comes across. Now, I do have a question for you while you're loading that up, because you said this is great for watercolors. Somebody was asking to switch back and forth between acrylics and watercolors. Is it okay with these brushes, or would you recommend a set for acrylics and a set for watercolor? No, I wouldn't. I mean, if you'd like to do that, that's perfectly fine, but you absolutely can use this for acrylics as well as watercolor. It is something that you can move back and forth from. Remember, it's the same exact medium. So whether you clean off acrylic or you clean off watercolor, it won't harm these brushes whatsoever. And this is the cat's tongue in the Silver Silk 88. Remember, we saw that before in the Ruby Satin.
Notice that nice point. I'm going to use a little bit of acrylic over here, and you get that nice edge over here. And again, all you need is a little bit of art instruction, which I should be taking, but I haven't. So, but you see, you get that nice point on that. I love it. This is a great brush. It really is. And notice that how much it holds. It will hold more than any other synthetic brush that's on the market today. Certainly, it's priced right. It's a great line in terms of the price, and it's just a real hard-working brush. You'll be able to use it just about forever. This is an interesting shape too. This is the chisel blender. And for you, those of you that want to know, it's the 8820. And this is very interesting because you notice it's got that sharp edge at the bottom. We call this a sharp edge over here. So anybody that wants to just do very, very work that, you get that real stroke where you're putting color down and it's doing exactly what you want. It's going into places where you can't necessarily get to with any other brush, but you need it to hold the color. This is a perfect brush for you. So we used to call this a bright. Those of you that are old fashioned like me, but today we have fancy names for it. And so we're calling this a chisel blender, but it is a bright. A bright means it's a shorter length out than the flat. So this is a very controlling brush. Again, if the length out is very short, it means it's very controlling. If it's a long length out, it holds more paint, but it'll be less controlling. So for those of you that need to do something like, I've seen anatomical paintings or bird paintings or any kind of animal paintings, people like to be very precise with that. This is the perfect brush for it because it's never going to get fluffy over there. It's always going to hold its shape, and it's just keeps on working. See that? Okay. So this is the Silver Silk 88. What makes this also an interesting line with lots and lots of different shapes in it. That has, I think, 15 different shapes and I don't know, 80 something different sizes. This also has a little mini mop. Now, this is a goat hair mop over here. Goats have to be shaved every year. And these goats this little mop brush holds a tremendous amount of color. So I'm going to get some, what am I going to use on this? I'll use this. This is a matte, flat acrylic. And notice how much this holds. So depending on the surface, I've seen people paint dolls with this brush. I've seen, of course, flat brushes, but a lot of three-dimensional artwork. Let's get some over here, get some more paint on my brush. And here I'm doing it on jeans, and this is doing a very nice job on jeans as well. My granddaughter gave me this leg. She cut off her jeans, and now I'm using it for demoing. But you see, you can get, that's this nice little mop. Now there are lots of other things you can do with mops. All you need is some ideas, and you can get this to work very, very well. This is a great brush. Remember, it's because it is 100% natural hair. It's going to hold much more fluid than a lot of other brushes. Just one more. We'll get that over here, and we'll get that working like that. Okay. Okay.
Now,
so
I definitely have a couple of questions if you are
please.
them. So somebody was asking these brushes that you're showing, and I mean all of the different series that you're showing, how do they compare to, like, say, a natural hog hair bristle brush?
All right. Well, hog hair bristle is completely different from this because that's something that is a natural hair. It has, it looks like this on the side. If you were to see a natural hair, you see little follicles on the outside of it, and this is a hollow tube on the inside. So it has an enormous amount of holding capacity. That's a natural hair. Whereas a synthetic, you have to really create a different experience with it because like I showed you the different size filaments, that's, some of the structure that you need in a synthetic brush. It's completely different from a hog bristle. I probably wouldn't use hog bristle in an acrylic painting. You certainly won't use hog bristle with watercolor or some of the fluid colors and things like that. I'd be really surprised if you used hog bristle with that, because I think it's going to be very coarse, and I think you're going to need a lot more paint than you will with a synthetic fiber, because if the paint is just sitting on the outside of the filament, then you need the different size filament to hold it on the brush, but it's not going to be absorbed in the filament. Whereas with hog bristle, the paint gets absorbed into the filament. So it's going to use twice as much paint actually than you probably want to have. And you won't be able to maneuver it as easily as you will with a synthetic fiber. So think about that. Hog bristle is a tough thing to paint with if you want to use it with a water-based paint. I would really recommend that strictly for oil color at this point. It's because and I know as soon as I say that, somebody's going to say use it for acrylics all the time, and that's fine. But in the overall scheme of things, there are so many great synthetic fibers today that I was just showing you that it first of all, it's a lot less expensive. That's number one. But number two, it's very, very long lasting for an acrylic color. So I would recommend our synthetics to you. All right.
That I cannot agree more. I also found that when you get a hog hair bristle brush wet, it tends to splay out real bad, and it doesn't hold its shape like a silver brush would.
Right. And it also, because it is full of moisture, then it takes a lot longer to dry.
Oh, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah, so that's something that is also a great advantage with synthetic fiber. So, I mean, what I'm showing you today is a small sample of the synthetic fiber brushes that we have. I'm not showing you, I'm only showing you 1, 2, 3, 4 different series today, and we have a lot more in our little quiver of different brushes. But in terms of hog bristle versus the synthetics, I would not recommend hog bristle for watercolor. And you can use it for acrylics, but I would recommend a synthetic fiber for acrylics. I just think there's just so many great synthetic fiber brushes today for you to choose from that you'd probably be better off with that. It's also easier on your pocket if you're interested in that. So that's my opinion. Okay.
Very
but we have lots of hog bristle brushes, as you know, Emmy. We have great hog bristle brushes.
I own several of them.
Okay, good.
Now, the one thing I did actually forget, and let me actually pop myself back up here too, before I forget. I forgot to mention this at the beginning. We have a giveaway for the show.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. So for those of you watching, make sure you pay attention. Don't click away just yet, because we're gonna make sure to continue an amazing demonstration with all of the information that you want. But we have a link in the description for you guys to click on and fill out to be entered into this giveaway. Now we're going to be giving away, I say we, you're going to be giving away a set for each of the types of brushes that we are showing today. So yeah,
I've got 3 different sets here. One we didn't have at the ready, but we will get that ready for you. So this is, let me see if I could do this better. Can you see that okay, Emmy?
Let me just, there we go. Haha.
Okay. So this is a 4-piece ruby satin set. This is a wonderful set. It includes the triangle that we showed you, a filbert, a angle, and a little round. So this is a marvelous set, and I do think that it's one of the first sets we came out with for ruby satin, and it's one of our best-selling sets. So this is our, it's called Expressive Painting Set, and this is with ruby satin. That's one of the gifts. We also have this wonderful 5-piece Bristol On set, and this is called for small scale oil and acrylic painting, and it is 5 pieces, and it also includes a triangle, a bright, an angle, 3/4 inch angle, so you get a nice big brush over there. You also get a script liner, and you get a round. So we've got a nice variety of brushes in that. So make sure you go on that link for the sets and you enter for the contest. And last one I have here, I don't have the Monza here, and I apologize for that. But this is a 5-piece silver silk 88 set. It's a detail set. And this includes a number 2 round, a number 6 round, a number 4 flat shader. Remember I showed you that the flat before, the nice sharp chisel edge. That's this fella right over here. And that holds its shape beautifully. And this also, one of the little mini mops that I was playing around with before, one of my favorite brushes. And that is great for scrubbing, for putting down any kind of color. And it's just a wonderful brush. And then of course the chisel blender. So we've got some really nice, lovely sets for you to choose from, well, for you to win. And there'll be one more, let me get that out of the way. There'll be one more with the Monza brushes in that will be included as well.
Yes. Now, for those of you who are, let me actually add myself here again. For those of you who are interested in this giveaway, there will be 4 winners, one for each set. And so make sure you enter your information. We will be closing the giveaway as of tomorrow. So you have 24 hours to officially enter. Yes. So even the people that weren't able to join us while we're live, if it's within 24 hours, we're going to close it on August 3rd as of 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So at that time, no one else is going to be able to enter, but we're going to give you 24 hours to actually type in your information and hopefully win a set. I'm very jealous, not gonna lie. I can't win.
You can't win?
No. That would just be mean.
Yeah, that would just be mean, is right.
But we definitely still have more brushes to go over, don't we?
Yes. So we're going to go over the Monza also. This is the Monza short handle. We just came out with this in Monza long handle brushes. And what we're going to show you is, this is a synthetic mongoose hair. Now, for those of you that have been around as long as I have, and I don't know if anybody else has been around as long as I have, you remember the original mongoose hair that was just this wonderful fiber, but that's a part of the endangered species list. And so what we've done is we've come out with it in a synthetic fiber. So it took me several years to come out with the right synthetic fiber, because you can come out with a lot of synthetic brushes. I know that there are a lot of them out there, and sometimes I look at brushes and I think, well, what's the function and what's the purpose of this brush? And you know, they're just a lot of brushes. They really don't have a real function. Where this is just this, it's a brush that has a very unique spring and bounce. So remember, we keep on talking about the spring and bounce. If you put the brush down, notice how it comes right back. And that's real important, because if the brush doesn't come back, then you're standing there with a brush that just goes any which way. And notice this is a watercolor. Notice how nicely that's coming back and springing. So you would use this for a background brush. This is a glazing and varnishing brush. And you would use this for a wonderful background brush. It holds a lot of color. And you're able to put this down in the background and cover that area. Now, what happens with a lot of the short handle brushes, people don't take short handle brushes as seriously. This goes into a lot of little detail that you might not feel comfortable with a long handle brush. So here I am, I'm doing the background and I'm getting the coating the background. And this is our glazing and varnishing brush with the Monza series. And this brush has been, actually, I've been using this for a number of years, and notice how nicely it comes back to its original shape. You would use this for a background brush. You could use it to put down any amount of color. And I'm using this as fluid now. This is fluid color that I'm putting on it. Notice how beautifully that covers the paper. It holds a color, and this holds it very, very much like a natural red sable brush. If you play with this, you would see that it feels very much like a natural red sable brush, but it's a synthetic fiber. So you're not going to have the expense, and you're not going to be using a natural hair. You're using a synthetic fiber. So this is the glazing and varnishing brush. This is in the Monza series. Monza series is very unique because generally the filament is a very short length out. So this is a short filbert. If you can see that, let me see if I could show that to you. This is a very short length filbert. So what happens with this is that you're going to be able to do very, very, very tightly controlled strokes. So if you want to get in there and do very tightly controlled strokes, that's the advantage of a very short length out. Now, if you remember, there were Toll and decorative painters, and they loved a short length out because they were able to do their fine artwork, which is a lot of very, very, very short strokes. And there's a lot of dabbing and a lot of pickup. And this is the short length out filbert, and that is in the Monza series. Now let me show you some more brushes in the Monza series. This is the round. Notice how short length that is. So here is a round in, well, this is a bit of dramatic difference, but this is a Bristol On, and this is the Monza. Of course, the different sizes, and I apologize for that. But notice how much shorter this
Can you hold
is.
them up a little bit higher?
Sure.
We're at the bottom right hand or left hand side of the corner.
How's
There we
that?
go. Perfect.
Okay, so you can see the difference in the length out on that. So for those of you that are doing flowers, you're doing the little eyes and little noses and things like that for little teeny detail, the Monza is perfect for that because it just does that little teeny stroke. And you can get into it. Let's get over there. Do some, just putting down little dots. Can you see that? Yeah, and that's just perfect for this particular brush. And that is the short length out Monza series, that short handle. And here I'm doing the little dot work that you can do. This is also, will hold a lot of color, but it's very, very short length out. So it's just going to be, a little teeny dabber, basically. And this one is our fan brush in the Monza series. The fan brush, you get a lot of interesting strokes with that. And let's see, I'm going to have a helper here. So, so this is the fan, excuse me. And I wanted to show you this, we showed you the grass comb before. You saw the little grain over here. And this is what you can do with a fan brush. You also get this wonderful graining and texture upon texture upon texture. You get a little bit more because it's a wider length out, and you're able to get some marvelous texture on that. But again, it's a little bit shorter length out. So when you're looking for a traditional fans are going to be longer than this, but this is going to give you some wonderful texture. I have to get it a little bit more. There you go. All right.
It is so satisfying to watch you just do that. That's absolutely lovely. I could watch that all day.
Well, it's an interesting thing. You have to practice a lot with fans and with grass combs. I have found that to be, but you can really get some of the most marvelous textures. So when you're at the seashore and you're thinking about painting the seashore painting, and you're looking at all the marvelous, the sand and the dunes and the bulrushes and all of that, this is the brush you want for that. It really is. See that? And that is the brushes that I have to show you today, but I've had a wonderful time. And as I said, we have a bunch of sets that we're going to be, giving to you. And we've just, this is a very short sample of an awful lot of brushes that we do have in our line. And I think it just gives you a little bit of a bird's eye view of, some of the real fun stuff that you can do with this. One of the great things about Jerry's Autorama is that they do, discount, they package well. We never get complaints about anything that Jerry sends out for us. They're just a great, great distributor of ours. We love working with them so much. And, they've given us so much opportunity to show the brushes that we brought to market. And many times we'll work with Jerry's first and get it out into the market with Jerry's because they're so innovative and they're so flexible in terms of the different things that they're willing to do for us. And, this opportunity to talk with you today is one of those things. So So that's our little line today. We just have the 4 brush series that we wanted to show you. And just know that there's a lot more brushes in our line. And if you go on jerry's.com, you're going to see an awful lot of our brushes. And we thank you very much for coming today.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for joining us. I know I still have a couple more questions. We have a couple more
Please.
minutes if you're
Sure.
willing to, anticipate some of these
Absolutely.
great questions. So I know I had a couple people specifically asking about which types of brushes for specific mediums, but the ones that you were showing, you were using every single style of brush with a watercolor, a heavy body acrylic, a fluid acrylic, a matte acrylic, all of those, right?
Fluid acrylic, let's look at that. So also gouache, I forgot to mention gouache.
That's right.
I have this blue over here. One of the blues is gouache. This is a gouache. Gouache is basically a opaque watercolor and it's become more and more popular than ever before. When I started out years ago, nobody really loved gouache, but today it's a very, very important medium. And these brushes are beautiful in gouache, absolutely beautiful in gouache. This is our wonderful dagger striper. I should really put a different color on this and make a ribbon for you. So this is gouache and this is a fluid. Let's see if I can make a nice pretty ribbon for you. There you go. There you go.
So satisfying.
So that's a dagger striper. Dagger stripers are in a lot of this series, and certainly here in the Ruby Satin, this is the dagger striper for that.
Now, that kind of ties into the next question, which was brushes for specifically heavy body paints. And again, you used all of these brushes with that like kind of a yellow ochre color. Was the Soho, correct?
Well, yes, I do use Soho. I do like the Soho acrylic color.
And that's a heavy body acrylic.
It is very heavy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. So I'm using Bristol On for that. That's a very, remember I discussed it first because it's a very, very stiff synthetic fiber and it's always going to go back into its original shape. So I definitely use Bristol On for heavy bodied acrylics, but I would also use Ruby Satin. Ruby Satin is absolutely outstanding for heavy body. And forgive me, my water's dirty at this point. Everything is dirty. So let's see if we get some clean water over there. And this is the Ruby Satin.
Scooch that over just a little bit. Sorry, it's just off camera.
How that?
You're running out of paper.
I am. I took the biggest pad I have. Let me go over here. Let me go. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that.
That's perfect.
But notice how beautifully and easily the Ruby Satin works in the heavy bodied acrylic. I mean, it just really just picks it up right up and you can absolutely, move it around the surface very, very easily. That's the advantage of a really good quality brush. And it's going to hold its shape forever. It really is.
Mm-hmm. All right. The other question I had that I have gotten asked multiple times throughout the show, and I was like, I swear I'm going to ask it, I swear. Water mixable oils and oils in general. I have been asked if these are the brushes for either of those.
It's for both of them, actually. So when we originally came out with Bristol On, we came out with it and the advertising said for water mixable oils. And that means that when you go to clean up the paint, you use water to clean it up and not a solvent. So that's not a problem at all for these brushes. It absolutely works beautifully. It's a stiff synthetic fiber, so it's going to hold its own shape. Oil color. Oil color is a unique thing. Oil color is, as you know, you have to clean it up with a solvent. Oil color will work beautifully in oil color. Keep that in mind. However, do not, and I want to repeat this, do not ever use turpentine to clean up a synthetic fiber brush for the oil color. If you do that, you're going to melt the filament of the brush. So do not go to one of these big box stores where you buy your tools and everything else and buy the solvent there. And it says odorless solvent. Not so. Go to a fine art store like Jerry's Autorama and buy the odorless solvents that they sell there. That is made by art supply companies who understand that they're dealing with artist brushes, not with these big house painting brushes. And they know that it's a much more delicate fiber than it is something that you get in a big box store. So yes, you can use it for oil color. Yes, you can use it for water mixable oils, but with oil color, be very careful what you clean it up with. I once had a gentleman who wrote to me and he said that these brushes did not hold up in oil color and the odorless solvent. And I said, you're using regular solvent. You're not using an odorless solvent. And he argued with me for the longest time. And then he said, uh-oh, somebody changed it in my studio and it was regular solvent because he was having melting problems. So that's what happens with these brushes. They're synthetic. So if you put it into a turpentine, it's going to start to curl. If you've ever had that experience, it's very frustrating. And it's going to start to curl and it's going to look like this. That's if you use a turpentine. There's no way to get that out of there and there's no way to fix it. I have tried for 30 years. I promise you, it doesn't work. So do not use solvent on synthetic, but you can use oil color if you use an odorless solvent from the art supply store, like Jerry's Autorama.
Love it. And I unfortunately know that to be 100% correct, because I did that when I was less knowledgeable. And in my former years, I have curled many a synthetic brush and did not understand what I was doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so solvent will...
You know, the interesting thing, Emmy, is it doesn't matter if it's a silver brush or John Doe's brush or X, Y, and Z. It's any synthetic fiber. So it's not specifically for our series and you know, oh, silver brush is difficult and all that. It's not like that at all. What it is it's the synthetic fiber itself. And once you understand that and you don't have any turpentine in your studio at all, then you can use these for oil color and clean up with an odorless solvent. By the way, they work beautifully. They really do. They leave a very nice little line if you wanted to, or it gives it a small, smooth finish. And then it really holds the surface beautifully. It really does.
All right, and then we have another question that popped up and I'm very excited about this. So is it a general rule that the heavier and thicker the paint, say if it's at an acrylic or even an oil, the stiffer the brush you would want?
It's not a rule. No, there's no rule in something like that. It's how you feel and how you feel it comfortable in your hand. So a lot of people find the Bristol On a little too stiff for them because it is a stiff fiber. I happen to like it because I like the way it colors down the paint on a surface. But there are a lot of people that prefer something a lot softer. There's no rules with this. There are no rules at all. So let me show you this. This is the Ruby Satin. But then we're going to go over to something like our Silver Silk 88, which is a much softer fiber. And I love the way this just pulls the color right out. And it pulls the color right out and it just keeps on painting. And it's a much softer feel. And I'm able to get around circles and I'm around the edges and all of those kinds of things. So it's what makes you feel comfortable. There are no rules in this at all. Do whatever you feel is comfortable. One of the things that I really love is to go into art supply stores and play with the brush in the art supply store. Sometimes it's hard today because we're not going into stores as much, but if you can, play with the brush before you purchase it and feel that the spring and bounce on it. Feel the spring and bounce. You're going to feel a very big difference between Silver Silk 88 and the Bristol On. One is completely different from the other. This has much stiffer feel. You're going to say, wow, I can move mountains with this particular brush. Whereas this one, you're going to be able to paint details like nobody else's money. Okay, and that's the Silver Silk 88. So you can play around with that and all of it's right. So there's no wrong here. There really is no wrong. And what you can do is just keep on experimenting with what is it that makes you feel comfortable.
That is so, so true. Now I have one last question for you, which I've been saving to the end and it's a tricky one. Would you say a better quality brush means that you're going to be a better artist?
Well, that's an interesting question that has to be given a very serious answer.
It does.
So So when at the beginning of my lectures, what I typically ask the students is, how much is the most expensive brush on the market today? And you get all kinds of answers, $80, $100, $200, and all of that. But the answer to that is $1.99, because that cheap brush has to be replaced over and over and over and over again. It becomes the most expensive brush that you have in your toolbox. It really does. So if you buy a really good quality brush from the very beginning, from the get-go, you don't have hair falling out. You don't have to fight the quality of the brush to get the painting that you desire. And what happens then is you have a really good painting experience. And you say, you know what, I want to come back and do this again, because this was really enjoyable. I'm going to clean up my art supplies today, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to paint again. Whereas with that $1.99 brush, or the really cheapy one that you bought and you said, oh, this is good enough for me, I'm not the best painter in the world, you're not going to have the best experience. And you're going to say to yourself, this wasn't a lot of fun because I'm fighting with the tools all the time. I need a tweezer to take the hair out of my painting. I need to fight with this because it's splaying all over the place. So the most expensive brush you're going to buy is $1.99, believe it or not, because you have to buy it over and over and over again. Spend that extra buck, $2. I realize, everybody has to watch their budgets, and I appreciate that very much. But if you buy one brush instead of 3, and that brush is a really good quality, you're better off with that than you are with those, with a handful of real cheapy brushes. I have a friend who invited us over one time to paint pumpkins in the back of her house. And she took out these brushes that she had bought in one of these big box stores. And she knows what I do. And I said to her, what are you doing with these brushes? She said, we're just going to throw them away at the end. And, I thought that was very sad. I thought environmentally, it wasn't such a great idea, but also the fact that we wanted to paint pumpkins another year. So if we cleaned up the brushes and they were a decent quality brush, then we would have the brushes over again. So that's what she did. She threw them away after one use. That's not what these brushes are. These brushes are for a lifetime. You will be able to use them year in and year out. So it's a long answer to what seemed like a very simple question, but to me, that's a very important question. It really is. And that's what makes the difference between your painting experience.
I cannot agree with that wholeheartedly any more than I already do. I mean, in my own experience, and here, I'll even pop myself back up here. Actually, let me do both of us.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, I was telling you earlier, before the show actually started, when I was in college, I was a broke college student, and my teacher was saying I had to buy silver brushes. I was not allowed to buy anything else. And what she taught me in that class was that if you take care of your brushes, they will last you. And I still use those brushes to this day. They are my favorite go-to because I've learned on them and I'm so familiar, and I've made sure to keep up with them, and they're still great. And it's been several years.
I understand. Well, that's the great thing about something that a tool that you really love, and you break it in and you have it for a very long time. Think about, cooking appliances that you have in your kitchen. Think about, lots of areas in your life that you bothered to really spend a little bit more on it, and you still have it years and years later. A very long time ago, I hate to tell you how many years ago, I bought a pruning shears, and I bought the cheapest one the store had, and I brought it home, and my husband said, take that back and go buy the best one in the store because you'll have it so much longer. So I said, but it's more money. It was $2 more or something. And this goes back a very long time. I took it back like he told me to, and I'm still using the pruning shears today because it was only $2 more. I think the original one was $1.99. Maybe I paid $2.99 or $3.99 all those years ago, but I still use those same pruning shears. So, yes, you're better off with less brushes, but a better quality. And I know that, I'm a brush manufacturer and I want you to buy all these brushes and all this other stuff. What matters to me most is that you buy a quality product that you have for years and years, like you have, Emmy, and you have this wonderful painting experience. That's what really matters to us. All we do at Silver Brush are brushes. We don't do paint, we don't do surfaces, we don't do anything else. So we care 1,000,000% about our brushes. And when we send them out there, we want them to be the very best that folks buy.
And it shows, it really does. They last for forever as long as you take care of your brushes.
That's right. And I see that I was just given the old, pointing to the watch,
Yep,
and it's
it
time to
is that
go.
time. We have officially made
It's
it
that
through the
time.
show. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for
Thank
joining
you
us.
for
It was
having me.
so much knowledge, and I know everybody is so excited about those giveaways.
Yes. All right. Thank
But
you very
it's
much for having us.
definitely. Now, everybody out there, make sure you join me next week, of course. I am actually going to be by myself, but I am going to be doing an acrylic pouring painting. So I'm very excited.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to make a big
Yes.
mess. Big
It's gonna
mess.
make a big mess.
So that was the show, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great night, and we will see you next week.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.